He ain't missed. Have y'all watched him? He hasn't missed the last 10 shots. This dude might be.
Go ahead.
On the shot. Oh my God.
Hey! We gonna try something. That might be the only shot I make, knowing me.
Fear the beard. Okay, Stephen A., I see you. What happens when Stephen A. meets MVP candidate James Harden on the court? Find out next Tuesday as the two catch up to talk about Kevin Durant beating the Warriors and, of course, Stephen A.'s jump shot. That's next Tuesday right here on First Take. Listen, it might be a blizzard out here on the East Coast, but we are here for you. Welcome back into First Take. Appreciate you hanging with us. Molly Karam here. Stephen A. and Max are in New York City. Stephen A., we covered a lot of ground in hour number one. What are you hot on for number two, my friend?
I'm hot on LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers engaging in some behavior I'd like to talk about. But speaking of that video, would y'all please encourage America not to watch the show next week? Please.
Can't do that.
Don't watch it.
On blast.
Don't watch it. Oh, that damn James Harden.
Yeah.
Oh.
How are the Knicks going to attract free agents? That's my question. With this zoo that's going on in New York right now. We're going to get into it.
Let's do it. We'll go there.
That's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. 3 takes, got me.
Max mentioned New York. Former Knick Charles Oakley was involved in a physical altercation at the team's home game against the Clippers. Stephen A. was there. Madison Square Garden security escorted Oakley out of the stands, and the Knicks said Oakley was arrested by NYPD. He was seen shoving MSG security near team owner James Dolan. Oakley was released from jail early Thursday morning and had this to say about the incident.
What happened, me and 4 friends went to the game tonight to watch the Knicks and the Clippers. Get there, sit down, try to have a good time. Next thing I know, I was asked to leave the building. I asked why. And he said, guys, well, you have to leave because someone ordered you to leave. And I'm like, I've been here 4.5 minutes. I'm a Knicks fan, played here for 10 years. I love the Knicks. I love New York. And I want to know why I'm not welcome into the Garden.
All right, so we wanted to get you guys involved in the conversation. We asked you earlier in the show, who looks worse in this situation, Oakley or the Knicks? The results are in 69% say those New York Knickerbockers. Max, I want you to weigh in here. Who do you think looks worse in this situation, Oakley or your squad?
The Knicks look worse, much worse. And by the way, in one respect, neither looks good, because a middle-aged man should never be in a position where he has to be forcibly removed from a public event. You know, I mean, especially when he's twice the size of the guys that are publicly removing. I get that. And as Stephen A. mentioned, there was law enforcement apparently working as security at Madison Square Garden. That's very bad. So Oakley looks bad there. But in a larger sense, Oakley also looks good, not in terms of the letter of the law, but in terms of the feeling of it for Knicks fans, which is he shows up. He's a Knicks legend, whether or not he wasn't a great player, but he's a very good player, an honest, hardworking player. 10 years with the team, deep playoff runs, left it all on the floor. New York loves him. And here he is, according to him, he wasn't cursing Dolan out at first. That didn't start until Dolan sent his security goons over to get Oakley out of there. And then he was like, don't put your hands on me. And a lot of people in that crowd are thinking, hey, if more Knicks players had the kind of feeling, the fighting spirit of no one's going to put their hands on me, this team would be better off. And furthermore, think about it from the point of view of the Knicks, guys. The Knicks have one of their most beloved players in the stands, even if it was his fault, even if I'll concede that as the facts come out, it proves that Oakley was in the wrong. There's no better way to handle it than to publicly lead him away with security. You couldn't have smoothed it over some way that doesn't make the franchise look so bad. It looked completely dysfunctional. It damages the brand of the Knicks, and New York is behind Charles Oakley.
Max, you're right in this respect. Where the Knicks look incredibly bad is the last sentence of the statement that they issued, in which they say he was a great Knick. You know, essentially, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the quote in front of me. We hope he receives the help he needs. That was a really, really, really low blow. It was classless on the part of the Knicks, and that's what made you lean towards the New York Knicks being at fault here. Because if indeed he was a great Knick, he was the enforcer, he was the protector, he was the blue-collar, grabbing your lunch pail kind of dude that Pat Riley loved to have on his squad, that Jeff Van Gundy loved to have on his squad, and others. You don't sit there and treat him that way. You don't talk to him in that fashion, in a statement. That was real low, and it reminded us and hearkened us back to what the New York Knicks have regressed to under the James Dolan era. Because for me personally, the problems that other people have with him, I look at it and I say it's not a big deal. He cuts the check, and he's willing to pay guys to go out there and do the job he hired them to do. Guard and bureaucracy might get in the way from time to time, but he's an owner that cuts the check, and you can appreciate that. But then when you see the pettiness and the willingness to stiff somebody with low blows like that, that kind of statement was incredibly unnecessary, especially when you take into account the Knicks' history. Since December 8th of like 2001, when our very own Jeff Van Gundy resigned as head coach of the New York Knicks under James Dolan's stewardship, since that time, the New York Knicks have the third worst winning percentage in the entire NBA. They've only won 40% of their games. They've only made the playoffs 4 times since 2001. These are very, very embarrassing statistics that elevates the ire of the fan base, that lets them look at Oakley and say, you have the nerve to treat him that way when he's one of the remnants, the relics of the past that reminds us of some semblance of glory days. How dare you? Those are the kind of things that you have to look at when it comes to the Knicks.
And he, like many New Yorkers, is willing to pay money to sit there and watch that garbage product that Dolan continually runs out on the court. Well, he didn't pay. Stephen A., I don't think
he didn't pay.
Fine,
he got the ticket.
He was a ticket holder, but most people are paying, and a lot of money, to watch garbage that Dolan peddles. And in terms of the way the fans react, I think most fans are savvy enough to give Dolan zero credit for writing the checks, because obviously it's a good deal to write the checks, and everyone would be writing the same checks in Dolan's position. If it wasn't a good deal, he would sell the team just like almost all of New York wants him to. They're imploring him to. They're praying for it, begging for it. Sell the team to someone who knows what they're doing. What Dolan does know how to do is bilk New Yorkers out of their money, charge incredibly high prices for tickets, still sell out the Garden because of this blind loyalty that these great basketball fans in New York have to the franchise, and obviously do some ratings on TV because New Yorkers are still obsessed with the team, with the idea of the New York Knicks. So he's making a lot of money off the team, or he'd sell them. And if he's not, and it's just a vanity piece, because some owners in professional sports, even if they're losing money, though the equity of the team continues to rise, of course, it's still a good deal. But even if that weren't the case, it's a vanity thing for them. Look, I get to be the owner of a major franchise. Even then, it's just an ego stroke. And given his utter terrible, I mean, he's just a miserable failure as an owner of the team from a competitive standpoint. That also doesn't cut muster with the fans, because they're still saying, in that case, if it's not a good deal, if you're cutting all these checks, sell. He doesn't sell because he's making money, and it's an ego stroke for him. And so he doesn't get credit from the fans for cutting the same check that a million different guys would cut if given the opportunity.
As you all know, I have my radio show on ESPN Radio. It's on 98.7 FM in New York, 1 to 3 every day. It's 710 ESPN LA, which is 10 a.m. to 12 noon every day. And, of course, Sirius XM Channel 80. I say that to you to say that today.
Still waiting for my invite.
I say to you to say that today, Mr. Charles Oakley will be on the show. Stay tuned.
There it is.
Love it.
Wait. I'm sorry. That's 1 to 3 in New York and 10 to noon in LA.
In
correct?
LA.
Right,
That
and then
is
also
correct.
on Sirius XM, Stephen A. Smith
That
show.
is
Got
correct.
it.
That is correct. Charles Oakley will be on this afternoon.
Something else you might be discussing is this. Cavaliers head coach Ty Lue said after his team's 132-117 win over Indiana Wednesday that he may choose to rest his big three, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love, against Oklahoma City Thursday night, which is the final game of a 4-city, 6-night road trip. The only other time this year the big three sat out of the same game was against the Grizzlies back in December. Stephen A., what do you make of this?
Listen, the cynic in me initially said, you know something, LeBron sat up there and, went at it with Barkley. This is a TNT nationally televised game. If he's not playing and Kyrie's not playing and Kevin Love's not playing, it could affect ratings, which will ultimately have you thinking about LeBron and Barkley, blah, blah, blah. The conspiracist in me thought that. But in reality, knowing LeBron James the way that I do, he's a businessman. And TNT, they're partners with the NBA. And I think that he'd be highly reluctant to do something like that, to make that kind of a statement just because of a personal beef that he might have with Charles Barkley. He doesn't have that beef with Kenny Smith. He certainly doesn't have it with his former teammate Shaquille O'Neal. Nobody on the planet would ever have that with the great Ernie Johnson. So I don't think that's the case at all. But I do want to say this. It's the latest reminder of what I religiously state. The only problem I have with LeBron or any of those guys sitting out, I absolutely detest the fact that they pick road games to do it, where they're only showing up like once a year or something along those lines. I think that is incredibly insensitive to the fan base. I'm quite sure that whatever products LeBron James has wanted to sell over the years, it wasn't just for the folks in Cleveland. I'm quite sure that he's not close to being a billionaire if he's not there already because of folks in Cleveland supporting him. He gets support the world over. And city to city, state to state, he's a guy that should be there. And if you're going to take days off, take it off one of the 41 nights of the year during the regular season when you're in Cleveland, because that gives folks there a better chance at seeing you eventually. That cannot be the same for people on the road. I hate that.
LeBron James, if he leads the league in minutes, which is possible this year, will be no player in the history of the NBA has ever led the league in minutes played in their 14th season. LeBron will be the first. That's a really bad idea, particularly when it's not just leading the league in minutes this year at this advanced number of seasons in his career, though the age is a little younger than some because obviously he came straight from high school. By the way, making it worse because you play fewer minutes in college, and he played right away. It wasn't like they held him back like they did Kobe in L.A. They let him play right away. So he has a lot of not much tread left on the tires, you would think, mathematically at least. So there's that. He's also making deep playoff runs, deep finals runs every single year. He's playing in the Olympics. And then, not to mention just the busyness of his schedule. He's not a normal person or even normal star. He's a global superstar. The man must be exhausted. He doesn't miss playoff games. He gives it his all in crunch time, etc. Not only should they be sitting him, they should be doing it more often. And the only question right now, and this goes for Kyrie too, and Kevin Love too, who have had injury issues, is it too little, too late? Should they have been doing it more often earlier in the season? That's the first thing. The second thing, Stephen A., to your point, I disagree. I understand it's a point well taken. He wants to sell sneakers and merchandise everywhere, not just in his hometown. But I take it from the point of view of the fan, the Knicks fan, sitting in New York. Hey, the Cavs are coming to town. If LeBron doesn't play, especially if Kyrie and Kevin Love also don't play, even the New York Knicks might win that game. That's good for the home team. Secondly, the fans that you should care most about if you're LeBron James are the hometown fans. Those are the people rooting for you, not the people rooting against you. In a competitive sense, I understand from a larger, a broader business sense, yes, there's a point there. But that's not the responsibility of the players or the coach during the season. At that moment, they need to be, what needs to focus and guide their decision-making is competitive values, particularly for the Cavs as it relates to a championship. So I got no problem with them sitting, especially on the road.
Well, I usually leave moral soapboxes to you. I don't really engage in that too much. That's not my style. That's not my style. But I will tell you that there are exceptions to everything. And I respectfully disagree with you. I get your point. I just respectfully disagree, and I'll go a personal route. I knew of someone last year who drove their 7-year-old child from St. Petersburg, Virginia, to the nation's capital to watch LeBron play. They didn't care about the Wizards. They wanted to see LeBron. And they drove about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, whatever the distance was, just for their 7-year-old to see LeBron. And LeBron didn't play. Now, that's not even the kind of situation that I'm talking about, because, again, he goes to the nation's capital more than once a year. My issue especially is for those cities where the Cleveland Cavaliers go once a year, because I do understand the business aspect of it all. I also understand the competitive aspect of it all. But I don't care who you are. If you are a member of corporate America, your target audience is always the younger generation. Because when they're on the come up, not only are they in position to support you longer, but they breed supporters for you because of the personal experiences that emanated from you with that particular athlete. And when that athlete decides to sit down and have no compunction whatsoever to think about you in that regard, I think that's unfortunate. When you're home, but you want to rest, I can look at you and say, you must really be tired. Because 41 nights a year, you're at this arena and you're home. You get to sleep in your own bed. So if you still take off, I know you're spent, you're exhausted, and all of this other stuff. But when you're on the road, that just reeks of an elevated level of insensitivity. And when that happens, I think that's something that the league has to figure out how to address, because I'm telling you, Max, they keep doing stuff like that.
I agree.
Fans.
It's a league
They're going to show
issue.
up in the postseason. They're going to show up in the postseason, but during the regular season, there's a price that may be paid for that.
That's a league issue. I don't know how you figure that out if you're the league, but
I don't
some thought
either.
has to be
I don't
put
either.
into it. I agree with that, and it's to that 7-year-old fan. If I were LeBron, and I'm not, I'll just say it because we're talking about it. It really stinks that you missed LeBron. But the man's trying to win a championship, and so when you talk about priorities, is the priority the occasional? And there will be some kid who drives a long way with their mom or dad and doesn't get to see you. No, it's not. I mean those feelings should be taken into consideration. But the priority is winning a championship.
I know we need to go to break, but players didn't do it back in the day. So why do they need to do it now?
Well, I will say this, Max.
Well,
this is the only point, Max, that I want to leave you with. Let's not confuse. I'm not trying to say that they don't get tired and they don't deserve days off. That's not the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is not about the need for rest. I am challenging how they choose road games to do it as opposed to home games. That's the only argument I'm making. I respect the fact if your body, the game is sped up, Molly, athletes are more physical. It's far more physical. It's not the game itself, because it was physical back then. No,
really.
The game is not more physical.
Yeah.
But the athletes, being how bigger, how strong they
fair.
are, the advent of supplements, things of that nature. You're going
Molly,
up against
that's a
more.
complicated.
So I understand that.
Yep.
That's a complicated answer, and it has to do with what each era selects out for in athletes, et cetera, and other factors. We can do it another time.
You got it. Let's leave it there, guys. With the Knicks continuing the downward spiral, will New York be able to attract big names to play at MSG? You don't want to miss that discussion. Coming up right here on First Take. And don't miss this. On T.O., he has Hall of Fame-worthy numbers, but someone